Hi, my name is Randy Garner. I'm a sales performance coach and business owner for Full Throttle Sales Performance Coaching. I'm also a senior sales transformation consultant and business partner for Sales Optimizer. I've worked with Salesforce CRM as a sales performance coach for over 13 years now. I've worked with Sales Optimizer since November 2017. I joined Sales Optimizer as a business partner because I was sincerely blown away by the approach taken to ensuring that we build high-performing sales teams and the methods that we take to align to key performance indicators that we develop together with your company when implementing Salesforce CRM enhancements.
For a full demo of any of our apps, you can contact me through LinkedIn or by my Sales Optimizer email. You can see that information here, and I'll leave that information at the end of the videos that I produce.
Since joining Sales Optimizer, I've engaged in numerous conversations with clients, many of which were skeptical, and many of which I would say rightly so. Most that were skeptical never experienced the value that they had hoped for during their initial CRM implementation. Most are hesitant to make more investments in the same CRM to gain better value. Today, I'm going to cover 3 topics. The first topic being user adoption and the importance of change management in the process. The second being just a few of the advantages that can be realized by moving from the Salesforce Classic platform to the Salesforce Lightning Experience platform. And we'll wrap up this session with a brief overview of Sales Process Optimizer, a native to Salesforce app that we at Sales Optimizer offer to help our clients drive consistency in best practices. The conversations that I'm having with these clients are really built around these 3 things. Number 1, how would changing from Salesforce Classic to the new Lightning platform increase my sales? The second one is that I often hear people say that they're skeptical about how a CRM can drive best practices in a sales process. They tell me they can easily see how it can drive consistency, but best practices, really? And then there's my favorite question. What does Sales Optimizer have that can do these things for me? And remember, I'm skeptical about this. We only got a limited adoption, and our results were very minimal in our initial investment. So I'm hesitant to make any other investments. So let's tackle the last part of that statement first. I usually hone in on one term: limited adoption and results. One of the first things I'll say, after having been somewhat sheltered for the last 20 years by working with a company that had great change management practices, is it's very eye-opening to know how often this comes up. So now I truly understand why every presentation that we give at Sales Optimizer starts with this topic. And it starts with a short overview, really to level set, so that we don't become a victim to this. McKinsey conducted a survey of 1,700 executives around global transformation, and they asked a question about how to beat the transformation odds. The findings of that survey tell us that over 74% of all transformations are not successful. Now that's interesting, since most of these transformations have millions of dollars invested in them, and they're led by the smartest people on these projects. So why in the world would that many result in unsuccessful transformations? So the second thing to consider here is that this statistic actually shows us that adoption of CRM has actually gotten worse, not better. So again, we question, if we've learned so much over the last 10 years, and if things have gotten so much better, why would adoption have gotten worse? So the first thing we need to understand is that there's some major barriers to adoption. These are not the only ones that we're going to cover here, But these are certainly the top 4 based on our experience with hundreds of successful implementations of Salesforce and successfully driving adoption. So the first is this idea that there's too much complexity and too low value to the users. So part of the transformation has to address these issues and ensure that the design and the implementation has the appropriate amount of simplicity in user experience while creating great value to the users. The second component is this new technology adoption. Anytime you change technology, different people respond differently, and you need to be prepared to address that. The third is this topic of training, and traditional training doesn't work. Most people, in fact, forget 50% of everything they've learned within a day, and within 2 weeks, they retain little to nothing that they have learned. So the key is not training, which is important, but it's repetition and coaching over time. So the fourth barrier, it's really about company culture and individual habits. Think for a second about your sales organization and the way the culture and habits have been created. How long has it taken? And now what you're asking them to do in making a transformation is to try to get everyone aligned around the same culture and the same habits. It may or may not be easy, but this one is critical. This is one of those critical factors that we have to consider and we have to manage. So developing habits takes time. In fact, it takes approximately 66 days to develop a habit. It's why every year we see memberships with health and fitness gyms go through the roof around the first of the year. And then like clockwork, they have the largest month-over-month dip known as the February dip on or about February 15th. I know that's kind of ironic, right? If you're a company that is in this population that didn't realize the full value of CRM investment, it's often due to these 4 reasons we just covered. Complexity, the pace of user adoption not being taken into consideration in the process, traditional training versus a prolonged training program that builds the right habits and builds the culture of execution. This is a major investment that many companies don't think they need, and they couldn't be more wrong. This, in fact, is often where the investment fails. Our Sales Optimizer digital transformation program accounts for this with intense training early, weekly team coaching, and ongoing one-on-one sessions for those that require more coaching to build these habits. So, let's talk about the other 2 topics. And for this, I'll go live into my Salesforce instance for an overview of how the change from Classic to Lightning can help ensure best practices, and how Sales Optimizer, native to Salesforce app, Sales Process Optimizer, can drive consistency, best practices, and increase sales effectiveness. So the first thing we'll notice here is that I am in the Lightning Experience platform. So it looks a little bit different than you are used to if you're used to the Classic platform. But I want to share with you how just a simple migration to Lightning can help your sales become more effective, and it can help you really share some best practices. So when I have this Show More button for prospecting, you're going to see here that I actually have guidance for success that I can put into my prospecting to ensure I keep this in front of my employees so that they understand the steps they should be taking. Specifically when we're talking about a new employee, somebody that's not familiar with your process, having something like this is truly beneficial. So they begin to understand, okay, I need to prioritize. And I need to do that by company size, annual revenue, and contact information. I need to make sure I take a couple of minutes to do some website review to understand who the company officers are. I might have a prospecting talk track that I need to internalize and be able to do without reading about cold calls. And I might have the same type of talk track that I need to internalize and be able to do without reading for warm calls. I need to make sure that once I do these prospecting calls, I update my Salesforce. I want to connect with the people I talk to with a custom message on LinkedIn. And then I want to make sure I provide a follow-up summary email with next steps, time, and date if in fact I secure an appointment. So again, this is a very simple example. As you can see, each one of my steps in my sales process includes the ability to customize guidance for success. Every single one of them will help me keep in front of my sales professionals what those guidance are for success. So again, this becomes part of what we at Sales Optimizer help our clients define and then really help them build out into their process. So as interesting as all of this is pretty much out of the box functionality with a Lightning Experience platform and Salesforce Lightning. Now I want to spend just a little bit of time showing you how we at Sales Optimizer help you take that to the next level. So when I drop down here to Sales Process Optimizer, this is the app that we have that's native to Salesforce. Now I can see very specific steps that need to be achieved to open the gate to go to the next step. And again, I've got the same type of information as it relates to suggested activities. In fact, we take it a step further because I can now create tasks to ensure that I have those tasks that need to be created. This is part of what Sales Optimizer does when working with you to understand what are some of the processes that you apply that you know create the highest probability for success. Now, outside of being able to create tasks with these radio buttons, we have radio buttons here as well. So when I go, okay, if part of the process, this happens to be a process that I work through with a client that uses LinkedIn very rigorously in their process, and we walked through and understood what their process was and then built this out for them. If I go in and I say, okay, they accepted an invite to connect, because the first thing I did was I sent them a personalized invite to connect. I followed it up with a personalized email, right? If I click this button, I begin to see my progress bar and my win probability increase. If they've responded to my email, all of these percentages of probability can be set by what you define. If I have phone discussion number 1, and if I get a meeting set, I've opened the gate to move to the next step. Once I've opened that gate to move to the next step, the sales rep will just move to the next step. Once I open that second gate for qualification, again, I have the same list of key activities that we would like our sales professional to check off as they go. Hey, if I need to make sure I sent an agenda and I want to make sure I do so, I create a task. Now I can manage that task and close out that task. If I've got an invite that I sent and I want to create a task for that, I do so here. If I want to conduct my pre-call planning and I, as a sales manager, want to ensure that this is taking place without having to have daily meetings with my sales professionals and sales reps, I just simply have to inspect what they are doing in their activity process. Once they've got each of these steps completed, you'll continue to see the bar across probability increase. In this instance, we're still very early in the sales process. We're still understanding what their goals, objectives, obstacles, what their desired state, and what success might look like for them. We obviously want to understand what their competitive landscape looks like. This is how we help provide consistency and enable best practices throughout the sales process. So in closed won or closed loss, it really depends on the client and what their specific process is. If it was going to be closed lost, the process might be, hey, understand why we lost and gain agreement that will continue to have conversations with them and future relationship building, right? But when we go to closed won, the client might have a very specific process that they have in place to ensure that we truly are winning this account, and we're going to do the right steps to ensure a quality implementation. As you can see, if we've worked through every step in that sales process, we end up with a status that I'd be happy to commit because I know that my sales reps and sales professionals have taken the right steps to ensure consistency and best practices are followed. Thank you again for joining me for this short video. As always, if you like, hit the like button, share, and come back for more. Thank you.